Hello, and welcome back to the Alpha Male Podcast, a kind of a virtual citadel where we gather around and reason, and where it's okay to be an alpha male, strong, dominant, in control, where we don't have to apologize for it in a world where there's so much in today's culture trying to effeminize and weaken men, where we stand up and rebel against that. Where we say, no, I'm not going to fit into some beta male mold I'm trying to get shoved into. I'm going to stand out. I'm going to be set apart. Be the man that my God called me to be, strong, courageous. Today's episode, guys, is going to be about following your passions. And I'm excited about this one. Been taking notes on it, been thinking about it. And I hope you guys are excited about it too. Before I roll into the bio, I just want to say, don't forget to like, subscribe, in hopes that others will get to be part of the podcast with us. Now, if you want to skip the bio, if you've heard it before, you don't want to listen to it, you can skip ahead to about 3.5 minutes in. All right, guys, let's get into a little bit about me and who I am. First and foremost, I am a Christian. I make no apologies for that. I grew up in the southeastern United States, what most would consider poor. Grew up hunting and fishing and shooting at a very early age. I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I did combat tours, plural, in Iraq. After that, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps. After the Marine Corps time, I went to work for LAPD, where I worked regular assignments and more specialized assignments. I've also been a private contractor for the federal government. I've also served the United States Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I have been a state rifle and pistol champion in a few different states, a few different times over. I started shooting competitions even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I am very blessed to have all those talents, and I am very blessed that God got me through everything that He's gotten me through alive and in one piece and made it back safely when a lot of other good men did not. Not because of anything that I am, but because of who God has made me and because of how much God has protected me and sheltered me. I have served as the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area where our primary job is to stock active shooters. I've hunted and fished all over this beautiful country, everything from whitetail on the East Coast and mule deer on the West Coast, and elk and bear and wolf and exotics, buffalo. I've been a professional hunter and guide, professional firearms instructor, FBI certified, NRA certified, other three-letter government agency certified, professional firearms instructor for a lot of years. And as I mentioned first, the most alpha thing about me is I am a follower of Jesus Christ, the ultimate alpha male. With that being said, we'll get into today's topic. All right, alpha males. Today we're going to be talking about following your passions. Walk worthy of the vocation wherein you were called. Follow God first and foremost. And God gave you passions. Follow the passions. Follow your talents. No doubt you have a passion, a zeal, a desire for something in life. Something that really interests you. Something that when you're doing it, the time just seems to go by. Do you know your talents? Do you know your passions? And are you pursuing them? Do you have something in your life that you really enjoy doing, that you have a desire for, that you've always had a desire for, or for at least for a long time you've had a desire for? Maybe since childhood, maybe since you were young. Now, we recently moved, by we I mean my wife and I, and obviously things in life influence this podcast. And I didn't do this, my wife put this up, but she put up 2 pictures of me, the only 2, in fact, I think, in the place where we live. One is of me when I was a very, very young, skinny little blonde-haired kid, and a fort that I had built with a rifle. Now, I'll try and remember to put this on Patreon and have it for everybody to see, so if you've never been to goodshepherdtraining.com or Good Shepherd Training at Patreon, you can go there and I'll make it everybody to view on Patreon. But it's a picture of me as a little blonde-haired boy outside in a fort that I built that looks kind of pathetic with a rifle in my hands across my lap. one of the very few pictures I have of me as a child, just because I think we were fairly poor, and I think I have one of me when I was like a baby, one of me as a toddler, and this might be the only one I know of as me as a young child. I have some more when I was a teenager in high school and stuff, but and then the other picture that's up there is me with a wolf thrown across my back on the public lands in the beautiful mountains of Idaho with a wolf that I shot. Now, I've had a few lifelong passions in my life. One has always been shooting and guns, as evidenced by that picture. I remember as a young boy with my father in the evenings, I would sit down and he would always have this like basket next to one of the chairs, and it would be filled with gun magazines. And that was one of my favorite things to do, is flip through those magazines and just read and look at pictures and hunting and shooting. And as far back as I can remember, that's been a passion of mine. I've had a zeal for that. When I was a fairly young man, I'd be out in the garage with my dad with molten lead making ammunition or shooting. I remember getting for Christmas or for whatever, I don't even know if it was, for whatever the occasion was, I remember getting like bricks of 22 and being super excited about it. And just being able to go outside and run around and shoot stuff. That was great. I remember even before that getting a Red Ryder BB gun and going and trying to see how good I could get and shooting marbles and army men at various distances and stuff like that. You heard a little bit about my bio in the beginning. Started competing at a very early age. Joined the Marine Corps at 17. Now, I got good grades in school. I was taking college. I took a college class in high school. Like, I was doing very well academically, but I had 12 years of school, and school has never been one of my passions. I love to learn and I love to teach. That is one of my passions. But having to learn stuff that people tell me is important that I quickly realize is probably not important to me or my life. So when I was done with high school, even though I had been getting very good grades, I didn't want any more school. I joined the Marine Corps. I enlisted. I had had enough of formal schooling and teaching at that point. And this was, I signed up for the Marine Corps pre 9/11. So before we had went to war, I had signed up for the Marine Corps. And for pretty much all of my adult life, in one form or fashion or another, I have had those passions in my life. I have been more or less a professional gunfighter. If you don't listen to Gunfighter Life, that's fine. But there's another podcast I do that's pretty much all about guns and gunfighting, guns for hunting, for survival, for putting food on the table. But in some form or fashion, even if it's been like managing a gun store and teaching, concealed carry classes for the state that I lived in, I've been a professional shooter, gunfighter, hunter, in some form or fashion my entire adult life. And it's not by coincidence. You don't just happen to do that. I mean, I'm sure I could have went to college and become an accountant or got some trade that where I made more money or was more stable or something like that. And I can tell you right now, I don't think I would have been as happy because that's not my passion. Could I work at a car dealership, and have gone up the ladder and maybe from the outside seeming to have been more successful? Yeah, maybe, but I certainly probably would have been more miserable because that's not my passion. I don't care about selling cars to people. Could I maybe have went to college and been a lawyer? I don't doubt that I've been blessed with the intelligence and ability and self-discipline to do that, but man, I have no desire to do that, to be a lawyer. Now let me get into one of the things that inspired this episode. My wife, whom I love dearly, she has somebody in her life that she is very close to. And we were talking, and I asked what he was passionate about. And she said that he didn't really have any. Now he's a grown adult man, older than her. She says, well, he really loves to spend time with his kids, which is great, but his kids aren't that old, so for most of his life he didn't have kids. But she said he didn't really have a passion. He just kind of hung out and he went to work, but he didn't really care about work. He just did it to get a paycheck. But she didn't, and she knows him very well. I won't say the relationship, but it's family, and she knows him very well, and he has no passions, is from what she says. And I thought, man, and I got to thinking about that, and it just didn't compute to me because I've had passions for so long. It was hard to fathom that. And then I got to thinking, maybe this man has passions that he doesn't even know about, that he's never discovered, or that he's never pursued. And I thought, man, what a sad thought that is. And I thought maybe there were some of you out there that could use this episode. Perhaps you have a passion that you've put on the back burner. Perhaps you haven't discovered your passion yet. And perhaps we can help and encourage each other here. Now let us look at Ecclesiastes. Wherefore I perceive that there is nothing better than a man should rejoice in his own works, for that is his portion, for whom shall bring him to see what shall be after him. And he says something similar other places in Ecclesiastes. Nothing is better for a man than he should rejoice in his own works. I know that nothing is better for them than to rejoice and to do good in their lives, and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is a gift of God. He says nothing is better for them. Now, why should we care what this person says is most important? Number one, because it's recorded for us in Holy Scripture. Number two, it's from Solomon, up until Jesus, the richest and wisest man that ever lived. And if that man tells you nothing is better in life, and he says it more than once, worth taking note of. A little side rabbit hole. If you're looking for meaning in life, if you're looking for purpose, direction, you feel a little lost, the whole Bible is great, but Ecclesiastes really addresses kind of the meaning and the point of life, and really does a lot to dispel what we think is important versus what really is important in life. So I'd encourage you to check out the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, I don't know you and I don't know who you are, but I'm blessed to know my passions: shooting, firearms, nature, hunting, and I've been very blessed in talents in shooting, in hunting. And if you're not familiar with Jesus and the parable of the talents, you can read it in the Gospels. But a synopsis is, each man is given talents, and some use them very well and some don't use them. And at the end of the parable, it's written, take the talent from him who did not use it well and give it to the one who has the most. For to whoever has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But from he who does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. Use the talents you've been given. Use them, develop them, you'll be given more. For what good does it do to give somebody talents and skills and abilities and resources if they're not going to utilize them? How sad it is to be given talents and skills and resources and not utilize them. For all good things are a gift from God. Everything you have, every talent you have, every resource you have, it was given to you. You didn't give yourself life or breath. You didn't give yourself intellect. Whatever you've learned, it was given to you, the ability to learn. Whatever discipline you have, it was given to you. Everything you have is a gift. Remember that and walk humbly with your God. For it is written, what do you have that you did not first receive? But how sad it is. Think of a father giving his child a gift. A great gift that he knows his child will enjoy. But that child never opens the gift. He never uses the gift. He never embraces it or enjoys it. It not only hurts the kid, but the father wants his child to use and enjoy the gifts that he's given. So too you and your heavenly Father, perfect Father, who gives abundantly. I believe, obviously, as a Christian, that my life is eternal. But every day that we have on this earth, as it is now, as we are now in these bodies on this earth, as it is, every day is one day less. So what are you doing with your passions, with your talents, with your skills? Whatever you want to label it, what are you doing to pursue it? To further those gifts, to multiply those gifts. To he who has more shall be given. For one day, save Jesus coming back before our death. Save that. We all in these physical bodies will taste death. So every day, if that's the case, is one day less. And how are you spending those days? Are you pursuing things that really make you happy, or things that others tell you that will make you happy? Let me tell you about a recent incident that happened with me. I was recently in the line of work dealing with a man that was very upset at his circumstances at the time. And he kept bragging about how much money he had. Now, he was saying that he was a millionaire. Maybe he was. I don't know. Not my place to say, and honestly, I don't care. But that's what he was talking about, and for some reason he thought that gave him some kind of self-worth or some kind of authority that it didn't. And I'm thankful that I realized at a younger age of how little importance that is. I thought how poor this man is, no matter how much money he has, if he thinks that's what's important, how sad that is. Because I've been down that road. I grew up a very poor, I wouldn't say poor. I wasn't going hungry, but there were times when we didn't have a phone. We'd walk to the payphone, or our house didn't have heat, and we'd huddle around one little kerosene heater in one room. And you see, I didn't grow up a Christian. My parents aren't yet Christian, and I grew up poor in the South. And I thought, if I get a job that's well paying and do well in life and all the stupid things that society says will make you happy, a nice house, a nice car, lots of money, pretty girls, that will make you happy. And by God's grace, He gave me all that stuff. And this is before I was a Christian, at least as a Christian as I would consider it now. I got all that stuff. I got a really good job, money, and power. I wasn't a millionaire, but I was doing very well at a very young age. I had a very nice car, more than one. I had a big house up in the hills. At one point, like I said before, I was a Christian, and I'm not proud of this. I had a fiance and a girlfriend and probably talking to other girls. And I thought all that stuff was going to make me happy, and I was so miserable. I was so miserable because I had all this stuff, and I always was told, like, if you get this stuff, you'll be happy. That's what culture tells you. That's what advertising tells you. And I had this stuff, and I was more miserable. I was so miserable. I honestly didn't want to live anymore. I remember it clearly. I drove my police cruiser behind a church, and instead of killing myself, I got down on my knees and I gave my life to God because nothing that I had done had worked. I was miserable. And who knows what late or early hour at night, behind a church, in a parking lot, in the rain, I gave my life to God. Because none of that stuff was important. Soon after that, I quit my job as a police officer. I gave it up. I walked away from it. There was a time shortly after that where I was living in my car. And I was happier with God in that car than I was in that big fancy house without Him. Because that is my true passion in life. That's my number one passion. That is the greatest of all the commandments. Jesus says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength." That is my great passion that sadly I didn't realize until later in life. It doesn't matter if you have millions and millions of dollars. Going back to Ecclesiastes and Solomon, one day you'll be dead, and who knows what will happen to that money after you. Even if you have a son, he may squander it. Hopefully this doesn't happen, but, plenty of people squander money on cocaine habits or on stupid things. Who knows what will happen to that money after you're gone? You know what's more precious than money is time. And if you're spending your time making money and doing stuff that doesn't fulfill you and make you happy, I don't care how much money you have, you're poor. You're poor in this life. Just like that man. He was miserable, but he was bragging about how much money he had. But he wasn't happy, at least not at the time, because that money's not going to make you happy. Now, it's often misquoted, money is not the root of all evil, the love of money is the root of all evil. For it is written, you cannot serve God and mammon. Money is neither good nor evil of itself, it's a resource. Money is a medium of exchange to get things that you may or may not need. But money in and of itself is not going to make you happy. I learned that, thankfully, in my 20s. If you're miserable in life, no matter what age you are, and you keep thinking if you earn a little bit more money, then you're going to be happy, you're not going to be happy. If you're listening to this in America, and you have a roof over your head and you have food in your stomach, more money's probably not going to make you happy. Happiness doesn't come from money. Happiness comes from your Creator. And as the wisest man until the time of Jesus, until Jesus came in the flesh, Solomon wrote, "Nothing is better for a man. I know that nothing is better for them than they should rejoice, do good in their lives, and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is a gift of God." Now, like I said, if you didn't know about Solomon, let me read you a short excerpt here from Ecclesiastes. "Yes, I had greater possessions of herds and flocks than all who were in Jerusalem before me. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and special treasures of kings and of provinces. I acquired male and female singers, the delights of the sons of men, and musical instruments of all kinds. So I became great and excellent, more than all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them, nor did I withhold my heart from any pleasure." Do you know what he says about this? The man who had all these things? "Indeed, all was vanity and grasping for the wind." So if you think that another $10,000 a year in your income bracket is going to fulfill your life and fulfill everything and make you happy, I don't think so. If you have a 40-inch TV, I don't even own a TV. but let's say you have a 35-inch TV and you think a 65-inch TV, I think that's big, is going to make you happy. Unless that's your passion, like reviewing and teaching others about, electronic equipment, it's not going to make you overall any happier. You'll probably play with it for a couple of weeks and be bored with it. Another thing about Solomon that I'll say, he had many, many wives and concubines. I do believe hundreds. I do believe 700 wives and 300 concubines. Far from fulfilling his life, if you don't know the story of Solomon, this didn't help him. In fact, it became a snare. So much like money will not be the fulfillment of your life, so too a woman will not be the fulfillment of your life. I'm talking hopefully mostly to young men here, and I'm speaking from a man that has been blessed by God with an amazing wife whom I love dearly. But my source of happiness is not my wife, it is my God. My God is perfect. I don't care what woman you're after. I don't care what woman you're in love with, infatuated with. You might think she's perfect, but she is not perfect, and neither are you. And she is not going to fulfill your life and be the source of all your joy. That's something only a perfect being, God and God alone, can do. If you're looking or expecting a woman to be perfect, I don't care who that woman is in your life, you'll be disappointed. If you're looking for a woman to be the meaning of life, or women, you are mistaken. Perhaps a good time to get into a litmus test for what a good, godly passion, talent is and is not. The test, the Word of God. Is it a sin? Sin is lawlessness. Look at the laws of God. If it is contrary to those, then it is not a blessing, it is not a talent, it is sin. God does not change. He is infinite and unchanging. So I obviously can't go over all the talents and all the things, but first, make sure that it passes the Word of God test, and then make sure you're using your talent. And none of us are perfect, but in a way that glorifies God. Now, this podcast, one of my talents obviously is teaching. So let me talk about a little bit about the genesis of the Alpha Male podcast. I was going to church in Idaho at some point, and our church needed Sunday school, very young teachers for very young children in Sunday school. And I had never had kids. It wasn't really a thing. I was, Marine Corps, police officer. But I looked around this church of lots of people, and they still needed volunteers. And I thought, there's no reason why I can't do this. And if the church has a need, then I should do it. So I volunteered for these very young kids. And when I left that church in that area of Idaho, that was one of the hardest things to give up, was those, being a part of those young children's lives. Then I went to another part of Idaho and got involved with a young men's ministry. And I saw that a lot of these young men, I'm talking men, they should have been men at that point, like they were in their 20s, just didn't have, and not that I'm perfect, guys, I am not your savior, I am not in any way a substitute for God or for Jesus Christ. But I saw that these men needed a strong, dominant, alpha male to show them, to guide them, to lead them, and to make them into leaders and strong men. So I got involved in this men's ministry. I thought, if nobody else is going to step up and do this, then I'll do this. And I saw this need in our culture, in our society, where culture today is just trying to effeminize men and beat them down and make them betas and even almost make them apologetic for being strong and dominant. And I thought, no. So I guess metaphorically, like I did in the church in southern Idaho, I raised my hand metaphorically and I started doing the Alpha Male podcast. There was men there that needed that in this young adult men's ministry, but I knew there were more. And I knew that I could use some of the talents that I had for speaking, for preaching, for ministry. Now, God doesn't need me. He could do any of this without me. God chooses to use us. He doesn't need us for anything. We need Him for everything. For Jesus said, without me, you can do nothing. But I am very humbled and blessed that anybody listens to this so that I can be a positive influence. I guess that's another rabbit hole we could go down, but let us stick to the topic. There is a positive and a right way to be an alpha male, to walk it out. And none of us are perfect. But likewise, use your passions, use your talents in a good way. And none of that is perfect. I've been a professional gunfighter most of my adult life. I guess pretty much all of my adult life. But we don't live in a perfect world. I work for LAPD, which was honestly a fun and exciting job. But I had to live in LA, which for me, which my other passions are being outside and being able to go shoot. And I don't mean on a police range, on a square range. I mean running and gunning, stuff like that, being outside, being able to hunt and fish. And LAPD was not, I did not want to spend 20 years of my life. And people thought I was crazy if I left LAPD. It was such a good job, everybody thought. But I thought I'd be crazy if I stayed. I could give examples of that all throughout. We don't live in a perfect world. I run a tactical team. Primary job is dissuading and stopping active shooters in a fairly big metropolitan area. It's a great job. It's not perfect. Some of my shifts are 7 at night till 7 in the morning, 12-hour grave shift. That's not great. Also, if somebody's drunk and lost, if you've ever had to deal with a very intoxicated person, that's not the most fun and not really part of my job. But what am I going to say? That's not my job. I'm not going to do that. No, I'm going to help that person that needs help. Just like you're not perfect and this world's not perfect, no matter what you do, likely there'll be aspects of it you don't like, but are you pursuing your passions? Are you using your talents? As we said earlier, save Jesus coming back in our lifetime and restoring all things. Every day we spend on this earth is one day less. And on your deathbed, if you have time to ponder, are you going to say, man, I wish I had made more money? I wish I had spent more time in that cubicle doing something I didn't care about? Or are you going to be happy for the time you spent pursuing your passion? We might think in our own eyes we're super, super important, but if the revelation of God's plan tarries another couple hundred years, is what you're doing in life now important? Is that money going to be relevant? Or should you be spending more time on the talents and gifts you've been given in life, your talents, your passions? Are you using them? Are you enjoying them? They are gifts. Now, what I'm not saying is I'm not telling you to go out and quit your job tomorrow and not be able to feed your kids or your family. What I'm saying is this calling on you? Is this tugging on you in your life to say, maybe what I'm doing and what I'm putting importance on is not what's really important? Maybe I can find a way to use my talents and my skills in life more and incorporate them more. Perhaps that can be done. A case could even be made a certain time in life when you're a young man to hustle and by God's grace be able to save some money and put some money aside. But one thing is for certain, is that this life and your future is not known by us. Only God knows how many days we have on this earth. How are you spending those days? How are you using your talents, your passions? Are you measuring success based on what culture and society says is success? Are you basing your happiness or pursuing happiness based on what culture and society says will make you happy? Are you following the passions and doing the talents and doing the things that God has given you to do? Nothing wrong with wearing a suit if you want to wear a suit, if you like wearing a tie. I can't stand wearing a tie. And there's times in life where I wear a tie for other people. But I don't want to pursue a life where I have to do that all the time. Did you go to college, or are you going to college, or are you thinking about going to college? Because people just say, oh, you just got to go to college. Nothing wrong with college in and of itself, but are you going for the right reasons? Or are you pursuing what you're called to pursue? Are you doing it because somebody else says it'll make you happy? A lot of times in life, especially for me, it's even hard for you to determine what yourself is going to make you happy, let alone somebody else telling you what's going to make you happy. All I would say is alpha males, be circumspect. You're an alpha male. Don't just go through life with your head down, trudging. Lift your head up. Use your talents and your strengths and your abilities. Jesus said he came that we may have life and have it more abundant. Do you have that abundant life? I've been very blessed in life. And this is not bragging. All that I have is a gift from God. But let me recount to you a few of the things in my life today. Woke up without an alarm clock. Read my Bible in peace. Prayed. I got up. Took a shower with my beautiful wife. I went shooting. I worked out. I practiced shooting again, dry firing. I recorded the bulk of this podcast. I worked out again. Sprinkled throughout it all, more Bible and prayer. Do I have a big fancy house? No, I don't. But I get very good sleep in the house that I have. Did I have a fancy dinner? No. Well, while I was recording this, I sat down just outside on a beautiful night, and I had a good cup of coffee, and I ate some 100% cocoa Ghirardelli chocolate, which to me I would take over a 5-star restaurant any night. The thought of going out to a fancy restaurant and having to get dressed up and having a bunch of people around me, I'd rather sit out on the back steps and eat a good piece of chocolate and drink a good cup of coffee. Do I have a fancy big screen 65-inch TV? No, I don't. But today I was out shooting a very nice Colt M45A1, which if you don't know is fine. It's a very nice handgun that I'm very blessed to have. And I'd rather spend my time out shooting that, working with that with the talents I've been given, with the passions that I have, than sitting in front of a big screen TV and watching more TV. No, I'm not saying this is the life that you should have. These are the things that I'm blessed with, the passions and the things that I like that make me happy. They might not necessarily make you happy. That's not the point. The point is, as that alpha male, be the architect of the life, by God's grace, of the life that you want to have, of the passions and talents that you've been given. Right now, as I'm re-recording a part of this podcast, I'm eating out of a peanut butter jar with a stick. That might gross some of you out. Some of you may not ever want to do that. But I like it. It's good peanut butter. A stick was right in front of me on a tree. The point is not for you to do what I'm doing. The point for you is to seek God and understand what talents you've been given and what's going to make you happy in life. Are you pursuing your callings, your passions, your talents? How are you spending your days, men? With that, we'll wrap up this episode of the Alpha Male Podcast. Guys, if you haven't yet, like, subscribe, comment on whatever platform. Like I said before, money is neither good nor evil. It's just a medium of exchange. Podcasts aren't free to do. So if you want to support, you can go to Good Shepherd Training on Patreon. You can also check out some of the other podcasts we do. If you like this one, you may also like Gunfighter Life. And if you like the important stuff, Simple Man Sermons. So if you have it in your heart to give, give. And if you don't feel guilty about it. What I'd rather have than your dollar is if you like this message and you think others would benefit from it, go tell a couple of your friends, a few of your friends about this podcast. Send it to them. Send a link to it. Thanks, guys, and have a blessed day.